Baseball isn't just numbers, numbers, numbers.
This game is not being played on computers.
You don't do that with a bunch of statistical gimmicks.
You don't put a team together with a computer.
We're talking weighted runs created plus,
expected WOBA,
his sweet spot rate,
defensive runs above average,
average exit velocity,
barrel rate,
xFIP,
BABIP,
SIERA.
We are above replacement radio. And welcome to Above Replacement Radio, where we're talking baseball kind of whenever. I am your host, Chris Gianta. Over there on the other side of the screen is Daniel Curran. How you doing, Daniel?
Chris, I'm doing very well today. We are close to a month out from the start of the regular season, technically less than a month out, with the Tokyo series less than a month away. So we are, spring training games have just begun. I know we make fun of spring training games a lot, but this is the best time for spring training games, is the first couple days where you can kind of just enjoy it, recognize that baseball is back before you decide it's time to just get ready for opening day. So I'm sure I'll be having some fun watching a couple games today, this weekend as well. And before that, we have one final positional top 10 before we get into our top 50s, which it's incredibly difficult to make for me this year. I don't know about you. And then we have our third division preview, the NL West.
Yeah, it's that time of year. And yeah, with the spring training games this time of year, it's like if you've been on a deserted island for 5 days, maybe you survived an airplane crash, and someone comes in with some very dry vegetables, and it's like, okay, some sustenance, I can survive now. And then once you get to March, it's like trying to eat those dry vegetables for 3 days in a row, and it's like, well, maybe starving wasn't so bad. And and you get back to it, and you maybe don't watch too much baseball
What a
until the regular
metaphor.
season start. Yeah. Trying to work that in, trying to get my references right. But anyway, we have some relief pitchers to rank. It is our 10th. It is our 10th list. Feel free to check out the 2025 positional ranking playlist on the Above Replacement Radio YouTube channel, where we have all those lists we've already done. But yeah, are we kind of ready to are we ready to get into it right away?
Yeah, but I think we can just start.
Yeah, absolutely.
This was a tough list. Let me check how many returners I have from last year while you talk about it.
Yeah. So like all these lists, this is what we think they will do in 2025, like ranking them on what we think they will do in 2025. So it's not all completely based on past performance. I know personally, I probably have a couple guys that actually have been top 10 relievers, either last year or over the last 2 years or 3 years, not on this list, just because maybe there's some signs or some things that indicate to me that they won't be top 10 this upcoming year. So that's how we've kind of approached all the lists. But yeah, what's kind of the breakdown of your list right now?
Yeah, so I actually I don't have my list from last year off the top of my head, because I didn't put it in my top 50 notes from last year because I wasn't putting relievers in the top 50. And it's on my school email, which I no longer have access to. So don't have it right now. I'm sure if you go back and watch my list from last year on YouTube, you can figure out what I had. So we'll be kind of figuring that out a little more on the fly. But this was a very difficult list. I had like 15 guys that I wanted to put in my top 10. Obviously, that's not how this works, though. So I had to put 5 on the chopping block. It was really hard to do that. But yeah, I think I can live with the list that I made. I guess we'll have to see how it goes during the season.
Yeah, for sure. I know personally I had 4 returners on this list, which for relief pitcher
is a lot.
Seems like kind of
good,
a lot.
Yeah.
Because starting pitcher I only had two returners. But maybe it's me doubling down on some guys, but yeah, I do have confidence that 4 of the guys I put last year will also be productive, have top 10 productivity this year. But yeah, without further ado, did you want to get into your number 10?
Yeah, I would like to get into my number 10. This was, like I said, a very difficult list. There's a few guys that you might have very high on your list that I don't have. Doesn't mean that I don't think that they're good. It's just that, like I said, this is a very difficult list to make. At number 10, I have Johan Duran from the Minnesota Twins, a guy that every year, like he'll get hit a couple of times. I still just never understand how it actually happens. He had a 3.64 ERA, which is the worst that he's had in any season so far. But all the underlying stuff was still there for him. The strikeout rate, although it did go down, was at 28.9%. The whiff rate was above 30%. Obviously, he's known for his velocity, right? I mean, he throws very hard, both on his four-seam fastball, which averages 100.5 miles per hour, and also his splitter, which averages at 97 miles an hour. That also had a -18 launch angle last year. So the thing that I like about Yohan Duran most predominantly, I think the thing that really puts him on this list for me ahead of so many other guys is the ground ball rate. It's been above 60% every single year. He's had a negative launch angle in each year of his career. That's a very consistent thing that you see out of him, and I like that. That's something that he has very consistently. This year, he did actually have his lowest average exit velocity against, his lowest barrel rate. That's kind of been the thing for him, is every now and then he does get touched up. And, the ERA might suggest that it happened a lot more this year. That's not quite the case. The expected ERA was 2.76, considerably lower. Obviously, I would like to see the strikeout rate go back above 50%. One thing that, or excuse me, 30%. Another thing that is encouraging, the walk rate went down last year. It was 6% in 2022 and 9.8% in 2023. So we really went into last year kind of figuring out which was it, and it was 6.6%. So thankfully the walk rate was closer to 2022. Going into his, combination of strikeout prowess and ground ball rate, since 2015, Johan Duran is the only pitcher to log at least 3 seasons with a ground ball rate above 60% and a whiff rate above 30%. That's a minimum, guys, with at least 150 plate appearances against in a season. So, like I said, very consistent on the walks and ground ball rate. No one does it like him in terms of those particular things. And for that reason, he is making my top 10 list. Just scraping it. He is my number 10 reliever this year.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, referencing kind of how there might be a lot of variance between our lists. Like, with shortstop, we had the same 10 because there's only 10 starting shortstops or there's 30 starting shortstops in Major League Baseball. There's going to be over 200 relievers on opening day rosters this year. So there's a lot to choose from. And that's why it can be very difficult to choose. But my number 10, I'm staying in Minnesota, but going with a different member of that bullpen, and it is Griffin Jax.
The 2022 Mercy Award winner.
Yes, that was when it was introduced.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was, check out the highlight reel of all the game day zone 5 pitches that were completely ignored by the batters he was facing. But Griffin Jax is heading into his age 30 season, and he's definitely coming off a career year. Among 169 qualified relievers in MLB last year, he ranked second in FIP, fifth in strikeout minus walk rate, and 10th in strikeout rate. He was also 99th percentile in expected ERA, 99th percentile in chase rate, 98th percentile in whiff rate, 97th percentile in strikeout rate, 89th percentile in walk rate, and 91st percentile in fastball velocity. Along with that, he also had a 24% sweet spot rate against, an 18% line drive rate against, and out of 315 pitchers with 150 plus batted balls against in 2024, Jax had the second lowest sweet spot rate against and the 8th lowest line drive rate against. So along with getting strikeouts at a very high rate, walks at a very low rate, he also has a very, very low quality of contact against him. Very, very impressive. And then he did all that in 71 innings pitched, which is a lot. Definitely on the higher end for relievers, guys who make 0 starts. But yeah, like I'm not putting him higher because his improvement was so drastic that I have to expect that he will settle somewhere between his 2023 and 2024 season. For example, he had the second best year-to-year change in whiff rate among 226 qualifiers. More often than not, the pitchers with the best year-to-year changes will find a settling point the next year. Same thing with worst year-to-year changes. Usually things like that don't really stick. So I figure he's gonna probably settle somewhere, but if he finds a way to do this 2 years in a row, he'll surely probably be top five next year. So Griffin Jack's getting my number 10 spot. Who do you have at number 9?
Yeah, very nicely said, Chris. At number 9, I have a guy that I think is very similar to Duran. In the same, I'll be talking a lot about the same skill sets when talking about Andres Munoz from the Seattle Mariners. We another guy that maybe had, I don't want to say an off year, definitely wasn't an off year, but maybe just not as loud as in previous years, just given uh, a lot of different things. The Mariners weren't a playoff team last year or whatever, but I think sneaky, he might have had the best season of his career so far. A whiff rate nearly 40%, a strikeout rate of 33.2%, the second best he's had in his career. But above that, a 178 expected batting average against, an 86 mile per hour average exit velocity against, and a 54% barrel rate, all making up a 2.94 expected ERA in 59 and a third innings pitched, nearly pretty close to the 65 that he pitched in his career high of 2022. So I think Andres Munoz, very quietly had himself another really nice season last year. All three of the pitches that he threw last year had a batting average against below 175, and all of the pitches he threw had a slugging percentage below 350 last year, and all of them also had a launch angle at or below 6 degrees. He threw his slider as his number one most used pitch, mostly to lefties, which is interesting because I think righties, you probably see them throw more, sliders against righties. But Andres Munoz actually threw them more to lefties. It had a 48.5% whiff rate, a 6-degree launch angle, an 84 mile per hour average exit velocity against, giving him a 2.3 run value against on his primary pitch. Obviously, a good primary is necessary. His secondaries make up for it as well. And similar to Duran, like I mentioned, since 2015, Andres Munoz is the only pitcher to have at least 3 seasons with a ground ball rate above 50% and a whiff rate above 37% in at least 150 plate appearances against. So, a little lighter on the ground balls, but heavier on the whiffs. I really like seeing that out of Andres Munoz. He's obviously, much like Duran, a very electric pitcher, gets a lot of velocity, averages 98, 97 on the four-seamer and the sinker. Obviously, the slider, like I mentioned, gets very good movement, 35 inches of drop, 5 inches of glove side movement, both of them above league average. So that's obviously, you always love to see electric movement out of guys like that, and that's exactly what you see out of Munoz. That being said, having him, I believe, return to my list. I think I had him last year. He is my number 9 reliever for this year.
Yeah. I think I re-listened last year to last year's, and I think you had him either 8 or 9. So kind of matching where he was last year for you. My number 9, and I'll preface this by saying, with relievers in 99% of scenarios, you kind of have to have like a dominant or at least really, really impressive season, the year before to get on this list. But I kind of make an exception with my number 9, and I'm talking about Edwin Diaz, who is my number 2 reliever heading into 2024. And he is heading into his age 30 season. And he definitely had a down year by his standards in 2024. But he still showed he can be an elite reliever based on some of the under the surface numbers. Among the 169 qualified relievers in MLB last year, Edwin Diaz ranked second in strikeout rate, fourth in strikeout minus walk rate, and sixth in xFIP. He was also 97th percentile or higher in expected ERA, expected batting average against, average exit velocity against, hard hit rate, whiff rate, and strikeout rate. 97th percentile or higher in all of those. And he was also 94th percentile in average fastball velocity. So he didn't really fall off too much there. I just kind of, observing a reliever, if the strikeouts are there and the walks aren't too high, I still can, feel really highly about Edwin Diaz. And yeah, with a couple less homers, I think he will be an elite reliever again, considering where those strikeouts and walks are and how electric his stuff still is. It's just he had his home runs ballooned up last year, and that caused all his rate numbers to go up. And he definitely didn't have a top 10 season among relievers last year, but I expect him to in 2025. Who do you have at number 8?
Yeah, I thought Edwin Diaz was going to be, he was my number 11. I'll just reveal that now. I don't have him on my list, but I felt the worst about leaving him off out of anyone. And I thought you were going to have him. I wouldn't have been surprised if you had him at like top 5, top 3 even, because he is, I think he goes up a ceiling to be that good, certainly. So I'm glad that we're pretty close to being on the same page on him as, a fringe top 10 guy right now. My number 8 is probably the biggest breakout season we saw out of any reliever last year. Not only, did he come out of legitimately nowhere, but he unquestionably had a top 10 season, and I think has forced himself into consideration on this list, even just after one season. That is Cade Smith from the Cleveland Guardians. What a season he had last year, most notably a 28 run value on his four-seam fastball, which gave him a 3.5 run value per 100, and I believe the most run value of any pitch in the majors last year. That is correct. Yeah, coming from a reliever on that is pretty insane because you're obviously throwing less pitches. It's an accumulated stat, which just goes to show you how insane Cade Smith's four-seamer was. He threw it 806 times, had 110 batted balls against it, and 203 plate appearances end on his four-seamer. A 174 batting average against with a 191 expected batting average, a 253 slugging with 311 X slug. So a 30% whiff rate, which is also pretty insane. Yeah, so I mean, it was a really solid season for him. Obviously, the strikeout rate was elite. The expected ERA was below 260. There was just a lot of really good stuff that we saw out of Cade Smith last year. Not only does he have the fastball, but it is complemented by a split finger, very similar to Duran. That one had a 29.9% whiff rate, additionally an 88 mile per hour average exit velocity against, and a 4 launch angle against. Even the ground ball rate was pretty good against Cade Smith's four-seamer. You're not supposed to get a lot of ground balls on four-seamers. He had a 14-degree average launch angle, which is significantly below the league average. So that was really good to see as well. Only one home run allowed all year in 75 and a third innings pitched in the regular season. The postseason was a bit different, but that's all right. Additionally, the walk rate was very much there as well. He stayed in the zone a pretty good amount, of 56.2% zone rate. The league average is 48.7%. And also a zone contact rate below 75%. The league average is 82%. So, not only, he got a lot of swing and miss in the zone, he got a lot of swing and miss out of the zone. And the four-seamer, going more into it, the 3.5 run value per 100 on Cade Smith's four-seamer in 2024 is the highest among the 1,545 seasons, the 1,545 seasons since 2008, with at least 750 four-seamers thrown, and it is the only one with a run value per 100 above 3, and he was at 3.5. So it was substantially, given that kind of volume, the best four-seamer we've seen in any season since 2008. Really solid season for Cade Smith, and I'm looking forward to seeing more next year. He is my number 8 reliever on this list.
Right, right. My number 8, I don't really have too many notes on because just the standard numbers really speak for themselves and why I'm putting him on this list. I'm talking about Jeff Hoffman, who has pitched the last few years with the Phillies, and he is now going to be pitching for the Blue Jays. And he is heading into his age 32 season. He has a 2.28 ERA and 2.54 FIP in 118 and 2/3 innings pitched over the last 2 years. And out of 97 relievers to throw 100 plus innings over the last 2 years, Hoffman ranks 6th in ERA, 6th in strikeout rate, 4th in strikeout minus walk rate, and 3rd in FIP. So he actually has been better than the 8th best reliever over the last 2 years. There's probably some newcomers or guys who really emerged last year that I have a little bit more faith in heading into 2025. Also, he ranks 5th in FWAR among all relievers, over the last 2 years. So yeah, he's kind of made a name for himself, been a staple. I know those don't include playoff statistics, but I'm looking at the larger sample sizes here, and looking at the larger sample sizes, he's been an excellent reliever. So I'm gonna put him at number 8. Who do you have at number 7?
Yeah, at number 7, I have your number 10, the first guy that we have both agreed to talk about so far. Talking about Griffin Jax of the Minnesota Twins, who, yes, had a very solid, another kind of breakout season in 2024. Very good four-seamer, very good off-speed, very good breaking ball. This guy threw 5 pitches this year, all of them at least 50 times, at least 6% of the time. I know that's not a large rate, but certainly 5 pitches at that kind of volume for any reliever is unique in itself. And all of them were very good this year. They all had a run value per 100 of at least 1.0, which, that's obviously strong for any pitch. Nonetheless, 5 of them that you're throwing at a decent enough volume. His sweeper was his most commonly used pitch. Very common thing for the Twins, it appears, because they really love sweepers, and it certainly pays off for them, and it definitely did. In the case of Griffin Jax, his sweeper had an 83 mph average exit velocity last year, also an 8-degree launch angle. You don't always see high ground ball rates on sweepers, but you did out of Griffin Jax, and obviously a 45% whiff rate. He had a 45% whiff rate or higher on 2 different pitches last year, his sweeper and his changeup, which was his 3rd most used pitch. So not only did we see that, we saw, high ground ball rates of 52% ground ball rate out of Griffin Jax last year, which was really awesome. We saw the high strikeout rates. We saw a chase rate nearing 40%, which is 99th percentile. That was also pretty awesome to see as well. Griffin Jax had a 36.9% called strike and whiff rate in 2024, which was the highest among the 271 pitchers with at least 1,000 pitches thrown. So that's pretty simple, but also meaningful, right? I mean, the called strike and whiff rate nearing 40%. No one else did it like that, given the amount of volume. So that was awesome. He also had a 71% first strike rate per first pitch strike rate in 2024, 10 points above the average, which is pretty cool. He's getting into the zone early. When he's not getting in the zone, he's getting a lot of chase, 38.3%, one of the highest in the league. A chase contact rate below 40% is also quite remarkable, given the league average is 57%. So yeah, with Griffin Jax, it's a large variety of pitches. It's a large variety of skill sets. And it's a large variety of just effective results, whether you look at it via batted balls, whether you look at via strikeouts, walks, whatever. He's doing all of it very well. And to me, it was good enough for, as a breakout season to put him number 7 on the list.
Yeah, right. My number 7 is someone who I also think has been better than the 7th best reliever over the last 2 years, but there's some signs that make me think he won't be above that. So I'm sticking him at number 7, and he was actually my number 7 last year as well. I'm talking about Tanner Scott, who just signed a 4-year, $72 million deal with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He's spent the last couple, he spent last year, started with the Marlins, and then eventually got traded to the Padres for the final couple months. He's heading into his age 30 season, and he leads all relievers in FWAR over the last 2 years. And among the 97 relievers with 100 plus innings thrown over the last 2 years, he ranks 2nd in ERA and FIP, and he ranks 4th in home runs per 9. He has been 97th percentile or higher in average exit velocity each of the last 2 years. And out of 249 total pitchers to throw 2,000 plus pitches over the last 2 years, Scott has the lowest average exit velocity against. His barrel rate also has been 92nd percentile or higher each of the last 2 years. And out of 249 pitchers, he has the 5th lowest barrel rate over those last 2 years. And yeah, so Scott's specialty has definitely been getting soft contact along with a pretty high strikeout rate. But what does alarm me is that in 2024, he had a 3-year low in strikeout rate, and a career low in whiff rate, and also increased his walk rate 4.4 percentage points from 2023 to 2024. With Tanner Scott, he definitely had a career resurgence in 2023, and it largely stemmed from him cutting his walk rate down, and it seemed like kind of the barrier between him being an average reliever and an elite reliever was that walk rate. So him kind of returning to old ways and walking more batters does alarm me a little bit. So that's why I don't have him a bit higher, even if he has been one of the better relievers in baseball over the last 2 years. But still, I trust him to be very productive and be a very good closer for the Dodgers, which is why I have him at number 7. Who do you have at number 6?
Yeah, at number 6, I have a guy that did not pitch in Major League Baseball at all last year. So maybe an ambitious pick to put him that high, but I think people might be forgetting just how ridiculously good he was over the last 2 years, and especially in 2023. I'm talking about Felix Bautista from the Baltimore Orioles, who will be making his return from Tommy John surgery this year. That's something you should be very excited about because in 2023, he struck out 110 batters over 61 innings, a 46.4% strikeout rate, and a 44.3% whiff rate. On top of that, getting a lot of pop-ups, a 9.1% pop-up rate, and just an electric four-seamer, right, with a 37.8% whiff rate. But the 37.8% whiff rate he had on his four-seamer in 2023 doesn't match up quite with the 60.2% whiff rate that he had on his splitter in 2023. He threw it 247 times. It had an 86 mile per hour average exit velocity against, but that's, when it was getting hit, which is very rare. 52 strikeouts and 23 batted balls allowed on his splitter in 2023. Think about that. 52 strikeouts, 23 batted balls. That's outstanding. So that's very fun. I'm very excited to see him come back this year. Just again, as a reminder, he had a 140 expected batting average against in 2023, which was the lowest among the 1,980 seasons since 2019, with at least 750 pitches thrown. So Felix Bautista had a historically good 2023. He was one of the best, maybe the best reliever in the league that year, and he will be making his long-awaited return to the mound. The walks are a struggle. The ground balls are a struggle for sure. I don't really care much about the ground balls, even if the Orioles are moving the fence in, because he does throw the four-seamer a lot of the time, and that's just a natural thing that's going to happen. As for the walks, if you're walking a lot of people and not getting hit, it doesn't really matter that much. And it didn't for him last year or 2 years ago, as he put up a 148 ERA with an 11% walk rate. So I'm keeping him in my top 10 list this year. He's going in my number 6 spot, despite missing all of last year.
Right, right. I mean, he's certainly earned it based on his 2023, and his 2022 is also very good. My number 6 is someone who I'm sure probably got reliever of the year last year. I forget. But it is Emmanuel Clase. I had him at number 6 as well last year. And he is heading into his age 27 season. He has a 1.90 ERA and 2.56 FIP over the last 2 years. And out of 97 relievers to throw 100 plus innings over the last 2 years, he leads in ERA, and he ranks 5th in FIP. Last year, he very, very notably put up a 0.61 ERA, and he also had a 2.22 FIP and 2.47 expected ERA. Out of 169 qualified relievers in 2024, Clase led in ERA and ranked 6th in FIP. He was also in the 92nd percentile in average exit velocity against, and was 95th percentile or higher in expected ERA, chase rate, walk rate, barrel rate, hard hit rate, and ground ball rate. If you go to his baseball savant page, it's really just all red for him. And you may wonder why I did not move him up the list, despite him, having such a very low ERA and a great season. The reason why I'm not moving him up the list is because he didn't improve as drastically under the surface. I know his ERA went from over 3 to under 1, but under the surface it stayed relatively similar. And he realistically should not have had nearly as low an ERA as he did. Clase had the lowest batting average against on hard hit balls out of the 380 pitchers with 50 plus hard hit balls allowed, and had the third luckiest difference in batting average and expected batting average on hard hit balls. He also had the second luckiest difference between WOBA and expected WOBA among 374 pitchers on all pitches, on all batters faced. So second luckiest out of 374 there. But yeah, obviously his under the surface numbers were still really good. It just didn't indicate that he should have had, a 0.61 ERA season. So but yeah, I mean, had a very good season, but I don't expect that ERA to be nearly as low in 2025. So Emmanuel Clase gets my number my number 6 spot. Who's your number 5?
At number 5, I'd say the guy that is probably the most underrated reliever in the league. I went into this list thinking I would maybe put him in my top 10, and he ended up being my number 5 because everywhere I looked, I was just so blown away by, what he did last year. I know that he was in some cases even better in 2023, but I think it's just worth noting how good that this guy is. I'm talking about Raisel Iglesias from the Atlanta Braves, who put together an outstanding, quiet but outstanding season for the Braves last year. It was a season where a lot of guys on the Braves, especially on offense and even to some degree on the pitching side, experienced some regression from 2023. Raisel Iglesias went in the opposite direction. The strikeout rate, did go down a bit, but the whiff rate stayed above 30%. The chase rate was outstanding. The chase rate was at 37%, kind of in line with where he had been previously. Additionally, he put together a season with a 2.24 expected ERA. That was 99th percentile. So, I mean, one of the very best in the entire league. He did up his ground ball rate by 2% this year. He also lowered his line drive rate by nearly 4%, which is always good. He also decreased his pull rate against from 41.9% in 2023 to 33.1% in 2024. He changed a lot of some of his arsenal last year. He upped the usage on his slider and his sinker, both of which had batting average against below 165 and a slugging against below 280. And everything that he was throwing, he was still throwing more, like his changeup and his four-seamer, still were very excellent. All of his pitches had a run value per 100 above 1.5. His changeup at 2.8 was his highest, also his most used pitch. Regarding that changeup, it was a 148 expect batting average against, a 193 slugging against, a 4% or 4-degree launch angle, and an 80.7 mile per hour average exit velocity with a 32.6% whiff rate. Just outstanding metrics against the changeup there. And again, one thing that Iglesias did was really dominate the sort of fringe part of the strike zone. And on the Savant, it's called the shadow zone. It's kind of the edge of where the line of the strike zone is. I think a lot of, battles are kind of won in and out of that zone. Are you getting chases? Are you getting some calls, right? Are you getting good results on the places where it's harder to hit the ball rather than down the middle? And Iglesias had a 5.4 run value per 100 in that shadow zone in 2024, which was tied for the highest among the 4,607 seasons since 2008, with at least 400 pitches thrown in that zone. So, the place where a lot of battles between batters and pitchers are won and lost, Iglesias dominated more than anyone else in the pitch tracking era last year. So he is my number 5 reliever. I'm very excited to see another hopefully excellent season out of him in a much needed bounce back year for the Braves.
Yeah, indeed. My number 5 is he might have also been reliever of the year last year, but he was, I think he was in contention at least, and that is on the National League side. I'm talking about Ryan Helsley of the St. Louis Cardinals. Ryan Helsley was my number 4 last year, and he's 5 heading into 2025. He is heading into his age 30 season, and over the last 3 years, he has a 1.83 ERA and 2.35 FIP. And out of 86 pitchers with 150 plus innings over the last 3 years, Helsley ranks second in ERA and first in FIP. And then out of the 97 pitchers with 100 plus innings pitched over the last 2 years, he ranks third in ERA and also first in FIP. Where the alarm bells might go off is his strikeout rate dropped 5.9 percentage points from 2023 to 2024. But I'm not as concerned about it as I normally would be because his whiff rate and called strike and whiff rate actually increased from 2023 to 2024. So it just kind of tells a sign that that drop will probably not be as present in 2025. I'm sure he'll have a settling point or maybe even just get back to that 2023 level as far as the strikeout rate goes. Also, that whiff rate was in the 97th percentile in 2024, and out of 374 pitchers to throw 750 plus pitches in 2024, Helsley's called strike and whiff rate ranked third. And yeah, he was also 94th percentile in expected ERA, 97th percentile in barrel rate, and 99th percentile in fastball velocity. I mentioned that barrel rate being 97th percentile. Over the last 2 years, he's only allowed 9 barrels and 4 home runs. This is someone who's thrown over 100 innings, only 9 barrels and 4 home runs allowed. And out of the 97 pitchers with 100 plus innings pitched over the last 2 years, Helsley has the third lowest home runs per 9 against. So, a guy with a 97th percentile whiff rate, very high called strike and whiff rate, and very low home runs per 9 against, that's going to lead to dominance. And that's what we've kind of seen out of Ryan Helsley for the last 3 years. So yeah, he gets my number 5 spot. Who do you have at number 4?
Yeah, at number 4, I have the person that you put at number 7. I do have Tanner Scott, and I am a little bit higher on him than you seem to be. I understand the walks are what they are. A 12.2% walk rate is never encouraged from a pitcher. To be honest, that probably kept me from putting him in the top 3. But the contact against is really what does it for me. It's not even the high strikeout rates, the high whiff rate, the high chase rate. All that is fantastic, but I'm kind of enamored by the contact that Tanner Scott gets against him. It was an 84.3 mile per hour average exit velocity against last year. It was also a 79.5 mile per hour average exit velocity against his four-seam fastball, which was his most used pitch. Additionally, it was a ground ball rate above 50%, a fly ball rate under 20%, and a pop-up rate of 8.2%. So I am very encouraged by just by the contact that comes against Tanner Scott. Both of his pitches, his four-seamer and his slider, have very good movement. They both drop 2 inches more than the average of those pitches in baseball. His slider also moves more, horizontally than the average slider in baseball, 3 inches more to be exact. So I really like, pitchers with good movement. I think that kind of leads to the stellar contact against him. 3.2% of fly balls allowed by Tanner Scott in 2024 were pulled. That's not his pulled fly ball rate among all batted balls. No, that is the pull rate on his fly balls. It was 3.2%. He allowed 1 pulled fly ball the entire year last year, which was, I believe, to Jacob Stallings in his first outing with the Padres. It was a home run. But again, only 1 in 72 regular season innings last year between the Marlins and the Padres. That 3.2% pull rate on fly balls was the 7th lowest among the 6,815 seasons since 2008, with at least 25 fly balls allowed. So I really like the contact against Tanner Scott. It's some of the best in the league, and I think it'll play in any ballpark. I think it'll play in Dodger Stadium, even if it is more hitter-friendly than either Miami or San Diego. And he is going in my number 4 spot.
Right. My number 4 is someone you've already mentioned. He was not on my list last year, and I think he was your number 8. Talking about Cade Smith of the Cleveland Guardians. Cade Smith is heading into his age 26 season. He played his first Major League Baseball season in 2024, and he put up a 1.91 ERA, 1.40 FIP, .255 expected ERA and 30% strikeout minus walk rate in 75 and a third innings pitched. He led all relievers in F4 and led all qualifying relievers in FIP last year. And among the 169 qualified relievers last year, he also ranked third in home runs per nine and third in strikeout minus walk rate. He only allowed one home run in the regular season, partially because he only allowed 19% of his fly balls to be pulled. However, he allowed 3.6 expected home runs. That's based on the average ballpark. It seemed like he seemed to have some luck in allowing a lot of his deep fly balls in more pitcher friendly ballparks. And maybe that naturally happens in AL Central a little bit more, but still, it would be naturally expected that he gives up a few more home runs this upcoming year. It would be a real shocker if he allowed one home run again. So yeah, I would expect, at least that FIP to go up. I don't think that FIP's going to be 1.40 next year, but I expect it to be kind of, I expect it to be in the low twos, which I would expect to be, probably a top 4 season for a reliever next year, especially in the workload that Cade Smith seems to be getting, through 75 innings last year, which is not all these relievers can say that on this list. So yeah, Cade Smith gets my number 4 spot. Who do you have at number 3?
Yeah, so at number 3, I have a guy that is switching teams this year, going from Milwaukee to the Bronx. I'm talking about Devin Williams, now of the New York Yankees, who has been, kind of approaching like legacy status on this list, right? I know we've only been doing it 2 years, but I would imagine if we've been doing this list since 2020, he probably would have been on both of our lists each year because he's just been dominant. A 1.83 ERA in 235 career innings with 375 career strikeouts is remarkable. And it's a shame he's going into his 30s now, because if he started doing this earlier, like we might legitimately be talking about like Hall of Fame as a reliever, because that's insane. One of the best things about it's not really new at this point, but the updated Savant profiles is that for pitchers, you can see the movement chart when you look at their page, and it shows like the average versus their pitches. And Devin Williams' changeup is just in a different stratosphere from what is shown as the average on his chart. Since he debuted in 2020, Devin Williams has thrown 347 changeups with at least 40 inches of drop and 20 inches of arm side movements. Nobody else has thrown more than 79 such pitches in that span, and Devin Williams has thrown 347 of them. It's the airbender for a reason. Pitching Ninja didn't just give him that nickname because it looked cool, because it had the math to back it up. And last year, like every other year, his airbender was a really solid pitch. It had 2.1 run value per 100, a 162 batting average against, a 216 slugging against, with even better expected numbers on both fronts. It had a 51.2% strikeout rate, a 48.8% whiff rate. He did throw it a bit less last year, but I kind of suspect the Yankees are going to bring that back. He did deal with some injuries last year and missed a lot of the season, so I would imagine stuff like that is probably just small sample stuff, not much to really think too deeply into. Obviously, it's one of the best pitches in baseball. It had a 77.7 mile per hour average exit velocity last year on 15 batted balls, to go along with 22 strikeouts. So I'm very excited to see what that looks like in a Yankee uniform. And I'm putting Devin Williams, who unfortunately shaved his beard a little too early, given that he didn't have to, in my top 3 for this year. He was my number 2 last year. So he's staying close to where he was before.
Indeed. My number 3 is someone who was not on my list last year because we knew he was not going to pitch last year. He was your number 6 on this list. I'm talking about Felix Bautista of the Baltimore Orioles. He's heading into his age 30 season, and he was the best reliever of the 2023 season, and then he missed all of last year after Tommy John surgery. But in 2023, he led the 162 qualified relievers in FIP, strikeout rate, and strikeout minus walk rate. And since entering the league in 2022, he has a 1.85 ERA, 216 ERA plus, a 2.42 FIP, 40% strikeout rate, and 30% strikeout minus walk rate. And in 2022 and 2023 combined, among 111 relievers with 100 plus innings pitched, Batista led in strikeout rate and strikeout minus walk rate and ranked 6th in FIP. And, kind of a theme looking at the relievers I look at is, kind of looking at strikeout rate and strikeout minus walk rate first, because those are the numbers that usually stick and stay the most consistent throughout someone's career, or at least over the course of many years. And Felix Batista, when he was pitching, was at the top of that list. So, last year I put Edwin Diaz at number 2 after he was the best reliever of 2022. So with Felix Batista, I'm putting him at number 3 after he was the best reliever in 2023. So I guess maybe it's a high standard to put him at coming off Tommy John surgery, but I really enjoyed what he was able to do in 2023. So he gets my number 3 spot. Who do you have at number 2?
Yeah, at number 2, I have the guy that you put at number 6, talking about Emmanuel Clase. I do agree with you that I don't think he's going to replicate a .61 ERA next season. I know that, I mean, call me a skeptic, but yeah, I think his ERA will be higher than that. But that's okay, because even if it was doubled, he still probably would have been reliever of the year, because that's a 1.22 ERA over 74 in the third innings is still ridiculous. Much like Tanner Scott, I put him higher on the list because I really like the contact against him. It was only a 3.6% barrel rate, an 86.5 mile per hour average exit velocity, a 57.8% ground ball rate, a 29.7% hard hit rate, to go along with very good strikeout to walk numbers. Walk numbers especially were solid, 3.7%. He's a guy that obviously lived in the zone. 54.6% of his pitches were in the strike zone last year, and even when he wasn't in the zone, he was getting a lot of swings. A 36.8% chase rate. Again, talking about Devin Williams and his changeup movement. Emmanuel Clase's cutter has some good movement and also just some excellent velocity as well. Since 2021, Clase has thrown 1,119 cutters with a velocity of at least 100 miles per hour. He is one of just 3 pitchers that have done that even once, and no one else has done it more than 468 times. Over the last 4 years, it is him, Camilo Doval, and Graham Ashcraft that have done it even once, and Clase has done it 1,119 times. So yeah, I really like the ground ball rate. I think Cleveland's defense obviously suits him very well. Clearly, because he had a .61 ERA last year, but he's had a ground ball rate above 56% in every season that he's pitched in the big leagues. To go along with that, very good strikeout to walk numbers, and low average exit velocity as well. So pretty much everything. Of course, I would like the strikeouts to be higher, but that's asking for a little too much, I think, because he's already very, very good. So I'm putting Emmanuel Clase in my number 2. I really like everything about him. And yeah.
My number 2 is someone who definitely emerged on the scene this past year, especially. I'm talking about Mason Miller of the Athletics. Mason Miller is heading into his age 25 season, and after being, a hybrid starter reliever in 2023, he pitched his first season as an exclusive reliever in 2024. He threw 65 innings and put up a 2.49 ERA, 2.18 FIP, and 1.77 expected ERA, and 42% strikeout rate, and 33% strikeout minus walk rate. And out of 169 qualified relievers, he ranked 5th in FIP and led in strikeout rate, led in strikeout minus walk rate, and xFIP. He was also in the 96th percentile in average exit velocity against, 82nd percentile in barrel rate against, and 100th percentile in expected ERA, expected batting average against, whiff rate, strikeout rate, and average fastball velocity. He averages about 101 on that fastball. So, looking at Mason Miller, I mean, he was the best at getting strikeouts, and having a good strikeout minus walk rate last year, and then along with that, preventing walks and striking out batters. 96 percentile in average exit velocity again. So it's not like when hitters are making contact, they're making good contact. They're actually making some of the worst contact out there. Um, so yeah, Mason Miller gets my number 2 spot. That ERA was 2.49, but I expect that to be even lower this upcoming year based on some of the underlying things. Who do you have at number 1?
Yeah, at number one, this is where I put Mason Miller of the Athletics. And yeah, it was a strong breakout season, some of the best player to watch activity from us in 2024. It was an obvious pick, but I mean, the way that it turned out, better than we could have expected, I think validates our like for Mason Miller. It was an outstanding, probably like a 90th percentile outcome season for him last year. And I think that ceiling rises even more just with how dominant he was and how much, room for improvement there shows to be. A 41.8% strikeout rate, a 40.1% whiff rate, a 37.4% chase rate. All of the stuff that is more on his stuff is really good. Obviously, the velocity is what he's known for, but his slider is perhaps maybe the better pitch. It had a 140 batting average against last year with a 0.98 expected batting average, a 186 slugging with a 140 slugging slug against an 83 mile per hour average exit velocity, a 47.2% whiff rate. Additionally, Mason Miller had a 29.3% pull rate against him, which is, I guess, natural when you're throwing the ball 103 miles an hour. Guys can't really time it up to get ahead of it like that, which is pretty cool. A 177 expected ERA last year. And like you mentioned, good contact against him. The barrel rate was very low at just 5.7%. The average exit velocity was at 86.1 miles per hour. And last year, Mason Miller joined 2022 Edwin Diaz and 2021 Jacob deGrom as the only pitchers since 2015 to post a whiff rate and strikeout rate above 40% and an expected WOBA below 220, which his was at 206. And that's a minimum 200 plate appearances against in a season. I'm very excited for another year of Mason Miller. I think, just given his stuff, given the fear that I would imagine facing him is, he's going to be the best reliever again next year. So he is my number 1.
Right, right. My number 1 is defending his title as my number 1 reliever heading into 2024, and that is Devin Williams. Devin Williams is, with him, for me, I don't have to get too analytical because the numbers speak for themselves and they've spoken for themselves
Yeah, for many, many years.
for a long time. Yeah. He's heading into his age 30 season. And since 2020, he has a 1.70 ERA, 2.24 FIP, and 248 ERA plus in 222 innings pitched. And in the last 3 years, he has not posted an ERA above 2, nor a FIP above 2.7. And among the 103 relievers to throw 140 plus innings pitched over the last 3 years, he leads in ERA and FIP. And although he pitched a limited time last year, he put up a 1.25 ERA and a 2.06 FIP. So yeah, like with Devin Williams, I'm sure that I wouldn't be surprised at all if someone has a better reliever, a better season as a reliever this year. But with Devin Williams, I know he's going to be very good this year. I can't say that about every pitcher on this list. We've seen it, 5 years in a row now. He's been a dominant reliever at his worst in the last 5 years. He's had a 2.50 ERA and I think a 2.82 FIP. That was him at his worst in the last 5 years. So there's definitely a possibility that some relievers will have better seasons than Devin Williams this year, but I trust him the most, and I can certainly see him winning reliever of the year, and he probably would have the highest odds this upcoming year just because of how incredibly consistent he's been and how he hasn't really shown any signs of devolving just yet. So
Other than
yeah,
health,
he's
but
been the
yeah.
best reliever, and I expect him to continue that in 2025.
All right. So
So
let's go through our lists now. At
yeah,
number 10, I have
do we want
Yoan.
to talk about who we kind of considered?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was Edwin Diaz, it was Ryan Helsley, Jeff Hoffman. Let me pull up the full list here because I had all of them. Josh Hader, Lucas Urseg, uh, Jeff Hoffman, Justin Martinez from the D-backs I really wanted to put, but I just couldn't find room for him. AJ Puck, I considered, Edwin Diaz, Orion Kerkering, Ryan Walker, Ryan Helsley.
Yeah, I was looking at Ryan Walker, Jeremiah Estrada, AJ Puck, and then like a real wild card was Robert Garcia, who just got traded
Yeah,
um
Rangers.
to the Rangers, yeah, for Nathaniel Lowe. He has really good peripherals.
He
Um,
does.
but yeah, 10 through 1.
Yeah, so my number 10 is Johan Duran. My number 9 is Andres Munoz. My number 8 is Cade Smith. My number 7 is Griffin Jacks. My number 6 is Felix Batista. My number 5 is Raisel Iglesias. My number 4 is Tanner Scott. My number 3 is Devin Williams. My number 2 is Emmanuel Classe. And my number 1 is Mason Miller.
Yeah, my number 10 is Griffin Jacks. Number 9, Edwin Diaz. Number 8, Jeff Hoffman. Number 7, Tanner Scott. Number 6, Emmanuel Classe. Number 5 is Ryan Helsley. Number 4, Cade Smith. Number 3, Felix Batista. Number 2, Mason Miller. And number 1, Devin Williams.
Yeah.
So yeah, that does it for relievers, and that does it for positional lists. And we will start our top 50 players in baseball list next
Yes.
week.
Yeah.
Or
By the way, I think I said in the intro we were doing the NL West today. That is not correct. We did the NL West last episode.
yeah, it is the AL East today.
Yeah. Yep.
Um yeah, we're doing the AL East, and yeah, but yeah, so yeah, next week starts the top 50s. We're gonna reveal our 50 through 26, and we'll probably highlight 10 players of those 25 that we talk about. And we might give like a
I thought we were doing
once
25. Oh yeah, we're highlighting. Yeah.
yeah, highlighting 10
We'll see.
players.
I was thinking we could literally just maybe go through all 50, but do like a sentence or two on each.
Yeah, or
Unless you really want to go all out for a few people.
um we could figure it out. I was
Yeah.
thinking like kind of a sentence or two on the other 15, and then kind of
Okay. And then a highlight. Okay, sure. That makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. And yeah, I don't think it would go too long, but sometimes we get carried away with certain things. But yeah, it'll be fun, and then yeah, the week after will obviously be the top 25 players in baseball. Um,
Yes.
but uh but yeah, we do have the AL East to preview. We've already previewed the AL Central and the NL West. And yeah, the AL East is always fun. It's always a very, very competitive division. And sometimes it can make it hard to find players to watch just because there can be a good bit of star power in the division. Um, but yeah, if you don't know what we do with the division previews, we kind of just mull over some of the additions and subtractions that they've had, where they placed last year, and we always pick a player to watch, usually someone under the radar, to look for in 2025. And then we ask each other a question based on something we found or something we found interesting from last year or previous years. So yeah, now we will start off our AL East preview with the Blue Jays as we go from bottom to top of the previous year's standings. And the Blue Jays went 74 and 88 and finished last in the AL East. They lost Spencer Horwitz, Jordan Romano, Ryan Yarbrough, Yanesis Cabrera, uh, Dylan Tate, and they added uh, Anthony Santander, Andres Jimenez, Jeff Hoffman, Max Scherzer, Yimi Garcia, Richard Lovelady, and Christian Bethancourt. Who's your Blue Jays player to watch for 2025?
Didn't they also have Amy Garcia last year? Or did they trade him?
Um,
They traded him to Seattle. Okay.
okay.
Cool. My player to watch is, I guess, a prospect. I mean, he is a prospect definitively. He's only played one major league game, so that would definitely mean unless he got 120 plate appearances in that game, he didn't pass the rookie limitations. I'm talking about Orelvis Martinez, who, for whatever reason, they called him up last year and then just didn't play him. I'm not too sure why. He is a second baseman, so with Jimenez coming in. We'll see how much playing time he gets, but I think he's definitely worth taking a look at this year. In 2024, he had a 267, 346, 523 for an 896 OPS, slash line in AAA with a 120 weighted runs created plus and 319 plate appearances. His 256 isolated power ranked sixth highest among the 479 minor leaguers aged 22 or younger with at least 300 plate appearances. And that's not just AAA, that's minor leaguers 22 or younger, and he was doing that in AAA as a 22-year-old last year. In 207 batted balls, Orelvis Martinez had a 46.7% pull rate, a 30.7% fly ball rate, and 41.3% of his fly balls last year in AAA were pulled. And that was the 17th highest rate among the 282 minor leaguers to have at least 50 tracked fly balls. Obviously, that only counts guys in low A and AAA. But given the data we have, we know that Orelvis Martinez was one of the 17 best pullers of fly balls in minor league baseball. His 12.6% pulled fly ball rate overall ranked 11th highest among the 267 hitters with at least 200 tracked fly balls. But not only was he pulling the fly balls, he was getting a lot of exit velocity on them. He barreled 36.5% of his fly balls last year, which was the sixth highest rate on that aforementioned list of 284. Additionally, 19% of his fly balls were pulled and barreled. Again, when he's hitting a fly ball, 19% of the time he crushes it and pulls it. Basically, that's tied for the second highest rate on that same list of 282 hitters with at least 50 tracked fly balls. So that's excellent. That number of the pull and barrel rate on fly balls, the 19% number, was the highest among the 139 AAA seasons since 2021 by a player aged 24 or younger with over 50 fly balls. So since we've been able to track this kind of minor league data, Orelvis Martinez has been one of the most impressive AAA players we've seen at a young age of distributing his fly balls in a very nice way. So what I would like to see out of him is to, by the end of the season, become an everyday player with an above average offensive second half. I don't expect him to, do this out of the gate, but I think he could be a guy that has maybe a rough April, May, June, and then has a solid July, August, and September, and looks like a guy that's going to make the 2026 starting lineup. So Orelvis Martinez is my Blue Jays player to watch.
Yeah. I believe I've seen him hit a home run in Double-A at a Hadlock Field in Portland, Maine.
Fun.
Yeah.
Was it a pulled and barreled fly ball?
I think
Probably
I think it
good
was.
chance it was. I mean, I don't know, you probably won't be able to know if it's barreled, but you could know if it's pulled.
Yeah. It was back in 2022.
Okay.
He was pretty highly ranked then, which is why I remembered, because I was like, who, naturally when you go to a minor league game, it's like, oh, what prospects are playing?
Yeah.
And he was like the
The
Blue Jays
Fisher
guy.
Cats.
Yeah, the New Hampshire Fisher Cats, of course.
The Eastern
Um,
League.
the my Blue Jays player to watch is another projected rookie. He's a Miller School of Albemarle graduate, and he's Billy Wagner's
I
son.
wonder who. Yeah.
Yeah. It is Will Wagner, who was traded last year in the Yusei Kikuchi deal, traded from the Houston organization over the Blue Jays, and he played 24 games at the major league level in 2024, and he's projected as the Blue Jays DH this year. He's heading into his age 26 season, and in 86 major league plate appearances last year, he hit 305 with a 788 OPS and 124 OPS plus. At the major league level, he at the major league level, even though he had a 124 OPS plus, he underperformed his expected metrics. He had a 317 expected batting average and a 483 expected slugging. Underline wise, looks very impressive. He put up a 90.6 mile per hour average exit velocity, 9.1% barrel rate, 19% strikeout rate, 19% whiff rate, and 33% line drive rate, which is very, very exceptional. 33% line drive rate. And in 77 games in the minors last year, he had a 10% strikeout rate and 17% walk rate. So Will Wagner, I think he can potentially be very attractive to, um, you know, not just the old school fan, but people who just kind of like seeing the ball and play. Doesn't seem to strike out a lot. Seems to distribute his batted balls at very good angles. He had a 33% line drive rate last year. He shows the potential to be, a 300 hitter at the major league level. Maybe not this year, but at some point down the line. So, and just overall, he seems to be have the potential to be very productive offensively. So I guess success in this case would be 300 plus plate appearances and just keeping that OPS plus at 120 or higher. I'd find that to be a very very successful rookie season for Will Wagner. If the Blue Jays trust him and put him out there as much as I think they will. So yeah, Will Wagner. He also has the potential to win that Yusei Kikuchi trade for the Blue Jays.
Yeah.
So yeah, now on to questions.
Well, that last statement transitions very nicely into my last question. You've probably already answered it, but I have which of the three members of the Yusei Kikuchi trade last year will make the biggest impact for this team? Will Wagner is, of course, one of them, along with Joey Loper-Fido and Jake Bloss.
Yeah, yeah. I I know Loper-Fido got some time last year. I figure those two are maybe a little bit younger than Will Wagner. Um,
Possibly.
Possibly. I think just Will Wagner just shows at a decent amount of like maturity at the plate. And maybe he doesn't have the highest ceiling of those three, but I think in terms of just major league success this year, based on what we've seen, and even if it was a small sample size, putting up a 317 expected batting average last year, um, I see him playing a good role for the Blue Jays and seeing him having the best season among those three.
All right.
Um, and yeah, my question, it's kind of a classic template here, but just with this particular individual, the shift from 2023 to 2024 in this specific area was pretty drastic. Um, Kevin Gausman had a 31% strikeout rate in 2023 and a 21% strikeout rate in 2024. Will he have over or under a 26% strikeout rate in 2025?
Yeah, I've actually looked a decent amount into Kevin Gausman. The whiff rate on his splitter dropped quite considerably, which is to me that's crazy. Like because that's the pitch that he's made kind of famous in the last couple of years, right? No one has been known more for I would argue no one's been more like known for their splitters in the 2020s than Kevin Gausman. Um and the fact that the whiff rate on that went down was quite concerning. So I am gonna take the under, if because like if he doesn't have that, like it's gonna be hard for him to get the over. And he didn't have it last year. So I think it can go up from 21%, but if he doesn't have the whiffs on the splitter like he used to, I don't really see a path for the over for him on this one.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So yeah, that does it for the Blue Jays. Now we head on to the Tampa Bay Rays, who went 80 and 82 last year and finished fourth in the American League East. They lost Jeffrey Springs, Jose Siri, and Richard Lovelady, and they added Ha-Sung Kim, Eloy Jimenez, and Danny Jansen. And my player to
They also
watch,
lost Tropicana Field.
they did lose Tropicana Field,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
temporary.
but they
Hopefully temporarily. That whole thing's up in the air, but it sounds like they might be rebuilding it to go back in sometime in 2026.
yeah, they added Steinbrenner Field, I guess,
They
which
did.
maybe not the best trade-off, um, but yeah, I hope they have as many night games as possible so that they're not playing day games
Oh, they have to. Yeah.
in July in Tampa, Florida.
Yeah, I think that's like an obligation.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why Texas moved their stadium is
Hmm.
people were not coming to their day games. Um, but my Rays player to watch for 2025 was actually I think he was one of your players to watch a couple years ago, 2 or 3 years ago maybe. And I'm talking about Jonathan Aranda. Um,
2 years ago.
yeah, 2 years ago. Jonathan Aranda He's heading into his age 27 season, and in 44 games at the major league level last year, he hit 234 with a 737 OPS and 109 OPS plus. However, he put up a 257 expected batting average and 518 expected slugging, along with a 91.9 mile per hour average exit velocity and a 16.5% barrel rate. Um, put up a 109 OPS plus, but objectively, it should have been a lot higher. Among the 426 hitters with 500 plus pitches seen in 2024, he had the fourth unluckiest difference in slugging and expected slugging, and the fifth unluckiest difference in WOBA and expected WOBA. And among those 426 hitters, Aranda's barrel rate ranked 12th, which is top 3%. And the difference in actual numbers versus expected numbers cannot be explained by what we would usually explain it is the pulled fly ball rate. He also pulled 33% of his fly balls and 50% of his barrels, which are both above average. The 33% of fly balls is much above average. And among the 461 hitters with 50 plus batted balls last year, he had the 15th highest rate of batted balls being pulled barrels. So yeah, he showed really great signs in the brief time he had in in the major league batter's box last year. Put up a 16.5% barrel rate, 518 expected slugging, and pulled his fly balls and pulled his barrels. So I know he's at least at the time that I put him, he was projected in the Rays starting lineup this upcoming year. So yeah, if he gets more plate appearances, I don't think he'll keep up those rates necessarily, but he can be pretty productive for the Rays if they stick him out there enough. So yeah, Jonathan Aranda is my Rays player to watch. Who's your Rays player to watch?
Yeah, my Rays player to watch is one of the many pitchers making a full comeback from Tommy John surgery this year. That doesn't really narrow a ton down, but I think this guy could be like a very deep sleeper for Cy Young this year as long as he gets enough innings. I'm talking about Drew Rasmussen, who made a brief comeback last year, looked very good doing so. And overall has just been a very good pitcher. Over the last 4 seasons, he has a 2.80 ERA and a 2.92 FIP in 295 and a third innings pitched. And among the 193 pitchers with at least 250 innings pitched since 2021, Drew Rasmussen ranks 5th in ERA and 6th in FIP. In 2024, he threw 28 and 2/3 innings. He had a 198 expected ERA, a 25% K rate minus walk rate, and an 86.2 mile per hour average exit velocity against. So a lot of things went very, very well for him in the brief time that he spent in the majors last year. His 219 expected WOBA from August through the rest of the season was the third lowest among the 198 pitchers with at least 400 pitches thrown over that span. And over the last 2 seasons, Rasmussen has a 51.9% ground ball rate against his four-seamer, not just overall, against his four-seamer, which is the 10th highest among the 440 pitchers with at least 50 batted balls against on four-seamers over the last 2 seasons. He also has a 54.5% ground ball rate against his cutter, which is 7th among the 134 pitchers with at least 50 batted balls against cutters in that span. This isn't thanks to his cutter's 35 inches of drop on average, which is about 8 inches more than the league average against cutters. And over the last 2 years, 52.6% of the cutters that he has thrown have had at least 35 inches of drop, which is the third highest rate among the 88 pitchers that have thrown at least 250 cutters over that 2-year span. Overall, he has a 53.1% ground ball rate on all fastballs since 2023, including his cutter, changeup, and his four-seamer. Along with that, the very good exit velocity numbers, the strikeout to walk numbers are there. What I would like to see out of him, think like a 2023 Tarek Skubal season. Like maybe he gets the innings, maybe he doesn't, but regardless, it's one of the most effective pitchers. If you go on Fangraphs and you filter by the number of innings that perfectly caters to him, you'll probably see him towards the top of the list. That's the kind of season I want to see out of Drew Rasmussen this year, and he is my Rays player to watch.
Yeah. I mean, he's one of the reasons why I think some people are thinking the Rays are an under the radar team because yeah, there's some pitchers that they lost 2 years ago that are coming back into the fold, um, and probably going to be very significant factors for them. So yeah, now on to questions. Um, Mine revolves around you know, some of the projections for this year. Uh, I don't know what the exact title of it, but when you click on it, it's just called depth charts. Maybe it's depth charts projections. But depth charts has Yandy Diaz projected for 3.2 F4 and Junior Caminero projected for 3.3. Who do you think will have more F4 this year?
Ooh, between Yandy and Junior Caminero.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I mean, I think that really more depends on Caminero, right? I mean, I think, well, I guess we don't know what we're getting out of Yandy. It definitely depends on his offense. Because we know we're not gonna get very good base running. We know we're not gonna get very good defense. Really depends on if he can find it with the offense, which he did not quite do last year. Caminero is definitely a very big wild card. He's like everyone's favorite breakout pick for this year. 80 grade power is very fun. Maybe the minor league park suits it very well. I'm gonna go with Junior Caminero, just because I think the humidity maybe that helps the ball carry, and I think maybe it helps a fly ball hitter more than a ground ball hitter like Yandy. So I'm gonna go with Junior Caminero. My
Yeah, yeah.
question revolves around some of the young guys in the rotation, two guys that didn't miss a lot of time last year, unlike a lot of others. Who will take the bigger step forward for the Rays? And we can measure that however we want. Taj Bradley or Ryan Pepio?
Yeah, that's a good question. Taj Bradley was one of my, or we might have shared him as
I don't
a
think I've ever put him. I put Ryan Pepio last year.
as a how about that?
Yes, we shared him as
Taj
a how about that. You're right.
Taj Bradley.
Hmm.
And yeah, he had a stretch where he was really effective in getting, strikeouts and whiffs in general. I'm just kind of looking at his profile and Pepio's profile. Um, Yeah, I think Pepio already I think he showed up last year maybe a little bit more seasoned. And maybe that just continues this past year, like just kind of more he probably maximized his potential more than Bradley, but Bradley probably has a bit more of a higher ceiling just based on his stuff. He averages 96.4 on his fastball. And if we're talking the step forward, I think Bradley um has more of a stride. Like
Hmm.
Pepio's stride is probably a bit shorter, but Pepio could be better this year. But I think Bradley will take the bigger step forward because of
Sure.
I
He
think
might
I
have
think
like
his
he
ceiling's a
might have
bit.
the higher ceiling and the lower floor.
Yeah, indeed. Um, so I think he takes the greater step forward, so long as he stays out there, knock on wood
Hmm.
there, because we know with Rays pitchers how it can be. Um, but yeah, that does it for the Rays. Now on to the Boston Red Sox, who were the definition of average last year. They went 81 and 81 and finished third in the American League East. They lost Tyler O'Neill, Nick Pivetta, Chris Martin, Kenley Jansen, Cam Boozer, and Manuel Valdez, Danny Jansen, Lucas Sims, and Luis Garcia. And they added Garrett Crochet, Alex Bregman, Walker Bueller, and Aroldis Chapman. Um, who is your Red Sox player to watch for 2025?
So my player to watch, the one thing that I feel like the Red Sox didn't adequately address this offseason was the bullpen. Liam Hendricks is the projected closer right now with Chapman in the wings. So it sounds like they're going with the old retirement home, doubling down on that in the closer role, moving on from Kenley Jansen. But there is a young guy in house that I think could be really interesting, who was very good last year. I'm talking about Justin Slayton, who was a rookie and Rule 5 pick last year, coming off a season where he had a 2.93 ERA, a 2.61 FIP in 55 and a third innings pitched. They were using him largely in like a multi-inning role early in the season before he went down with an injury, kind of like the 2021 Garrett Whitlock role. and he did very well with it. He had a 34.9% chase rate, a 4% walk rate, and a 3.9% barrel rate. And that made him the only qualifying pitcher in 2024 with all three of those stats, chase rate, walk rate, and barrel rate, in the 95th percentile or higher. Slayton's primary pitch, which was his cutter, a 53.8% ground ball rate, which was the fifth highest among the 79 pitchers with at least 50 batted balls against cutters. 9.4% of the pitches thrown by Justin Slayton last year were swings and misses out of the strike zone. And that was tied for the 23rd highest rate among the 374 pitchers with at least 750 total pitches thrown last year. Slayton also had a fly ball rate of 19.4% last year, and 46.7% of the fly balls that were hit against him were hit straight away. That 46.7% rate was the 36th highest among the 453 pitchers with at least 25 batted balls allowed. Among the only 16.7% of his fly balls were pulled, which is excellent. 3.2% of his total batted balls were pulled fly balls, which was the 20th lowest among the 315 pitchers with at least 150 batted balls allowed. So, very good contact against, very good distribution of power against him. Guys weren't really able to time him up correctly. And again, good strikeouts, good walks, all that. I would like to see him lead the team in saves. Simple as that. Whether, I don't know when they're going to make him the closer. I don't know if they're going to make him the closer, but I would like to see him get to a position where the Red Sox see him as the best reliever on the team and the guy that they're the most comfortable using in the ninth inning for the majority of the year. So I want him to lead the team in saves. It's as simple as that.
Right, right. Yeah, and I forgot to mention, I guess, my quote unquote goal for Jonathan Aranda. I would say same thing as Will Wagner, 300 plus plate appearances and a 120 OPS plus.
Yeah.
But yeah, with the Red Sox, it was kind of hard to find under the radar guys because I feel like every player at least at some point has been established or recently was established. Like, Willie Abreu last year was in Rookie of the Year contention, things like that. So I went the same route as you. I went in the bullpen and I went with Justin Slayton,
Mhm.
because yeah, I think part of like the players to watch and selection is going based off of maybe where there's a perception of weakness, like an area of weakness on the team, and that's definitely the bullpen. But Justin Slayton is not a reason for that weakness. He's heading into his age 27 season, and he's coming off a rookie season where he put up a 2.93 ERA, 2.61 FIP, and 3.19 expected ERA in 55 and a third innings pitched. And among 169 qualified relievers 169 qualifiers last year, he ranked 21st in FIP, which is top 13%. He was also 96th percentile in barrel rate, 97th percentile in walk rate, and 97th percentile in chase rate. And then he was also 84th percentile in ground ball rate while inducing pop-ups and an above average rate. So yeah, with Kenley Jansen and Chris Martin now gone, I think he will probably be relied upon more in high leverage situations. So he's just someone to look out for. Not necessarily a breakout candidate for me, but just someone to watch. I think the goal would be to just keep that ERA below 3 in 50 plus innings again. Not someone who I expect a lot of improvement from, but just to a guy who I think will further establish himself. Now on to questions.
Yeah, so in terms of questions, who will lead, who will have the higher B war, emphasis on B war, not F war, between Tanner Houck and Brian Bayo?
Yeah, the higher B war, which relies pretty much exclusively on ERA plus and innings pitched. And I mean, it's tough not to go with Tanner Houck based on the season he put up last year. Granted, Tanner Houck did, like, for the final few months of the season, looked a lot more like his former self. But still, I was very impressed with a lot of the just general improvements he made. And with Brian Bayo, the story of Brian Bayo is the Red Sox fans and Red Sox management has just kind of been waiting on it for him. He showed good flashes in 2022, didn't quite live up to expectations in 2023, and can continue that in 2024, but still very young. And I think a lot of what people are hoping
And
for
the
with the
infield
Reds,
defense got better.
yeah, infield defense did get better. And they are both ground ball pitchers,
Hmm.
generally speaking. But with Brian Bayo, I think what a lot of people are hoping for is a Tanner Houck type resurgence. Um, but yeah, just based on what we saw last year, um, and unless Houck does not get the innings that he should be getting, because Bayo qualified last year, and Houck got more innings than him last year at 178. I gotta go with Tanner Houck because I've seen it before.
Hmm.
I expect it to continue going, and yeah, so I expect Tanner Houck to get more B WAR this upcoming year. Um, Now on to my question, and this can be measured in whichever way we want to measure it, considering this is kind of a very open-ended question. Which rookie will have the most important role at the end of the season?
Okay, so I'm assuming you mean between Roman Anthony and Christian Campbell
And Marcelo Meyer, if you
and
want to put
Marcelo Meyer. Yeah, he's probably not. He's probably got the
it can be any
most.
rookie really,
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah. This
I'm
is why
sure
I'm
those three
taking
are really
Luis
the favorites.
Guerrero. No. Yeah, I mean, it will probably be one of the big three. I mean, I guess that you could go with an outside pick like someone like Luis Guerrero. Maybe they look at him as the closer instead of Slayton. Um, but I'm going to say Anthony. I think they project higher upside for him this year. I mean, he is the number one prospect in the sport if you don't count Roki Sasaki. But you are counting Roki Sasaki on most publications. So, although I believe Baseball Prospectus doesn't, they don't count him, but America and Pipeline both do. So, um, yeah, I'll go with Roman Anthony. I think Christian Campbell is under less pressure right now, especially with Alex Bregman coming in and being open to playing second base. Um, Anthony, I think they really want to see him as a starter next year, or at the end of the year, and probably at a higher point in the lineup. I think the vision for Campbell is at least have him on the opening day roster, and for now hit him, late in the order if you have him up there at all. Roman Anthony, I think when Roman Anthony comes up, he's hitting leadoff, he's hitting, in the top of the order or the middle of it. I don't see him making his major league debut and hitting seventh, eighth, or ninth. I could see that with Campbell. So I think Roman Anthony will have the most important role by the end of the year.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I said that purposefully because, best
Mm-hmm.
season, if I ask like who will have the best season, that can depend a lot on when guys get called up.
Mm-hmm.
But most important role is maybe a little bit tougher to answer. Um, but yeah, now on to the Baltimore Orioles, who went 91 and 71, finished second in the AL East, and then lost to the Royals in the American League Wild Card Series in 2024. They lost Corbin Burns, Anthony Santander, Danny Kalum, Jacob Webb, and Eloy Jimenez, and they added Tyler O'Neill, Charlie Morton, Gary Sanchez, Ramon Laureano, and Ronzi Contreras. My player to watch from the Orioles is one of their high draft picks over the past several years, and that is Heston Kjerstad, who was the second overall pick in the 2020 Major League Baseball draft, and he has played 52 games at the major league level in his career, spanning across 2023 and 2024. Um, and in 62 games in the minor leagues last year, he hit 303 with a 986 OPS. Among 205 hitters with 250 plus plate appearances in the International League last year, he led in slugging and OPS. And in tracked pitches in the minors last year, he put up a 90.7 mile per hour average exit velocity and 12.5% barrel rate, both pretty significantly above average. Uh, and in his career in the majors, he has a 90.7 mile per hour average exit velocity and 9.3% barrel rate at that major league level. So yeah, I think with Kierstad, he shows he shows signs that he can be a very productive hitter, and he is an outfielder, of course. And with Anthony Santander gone and Tyler O'Neill not having great numbers against righties, I think Kierstad will probably get more plate appearances as he is a left-handed hitter. So yeah, I think he'll get more plate appearances, and we could see that potential sort of potentially reach itself this upcoming year. So Heston Kjerstad is my Orioles player to watch. Who's your Orioles player to watch?
Yeah, my Orioles player to watch. This seems like maybe an obvious one, not in terms of the profile of the player, but there's a clear storyline that's attached to this guy. I'm talking about Ryan Mountcastle. You might not, you might be a little shocked to believe this, Chris, but Ryan Mountcastle, since 2022, has been the unluckiest hitter on pulled fly balls at home.
Wow.
Would you believe that?
No, I was thinking that was Jose Altuve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but believe it or not, since 2022, just a random year that I don't know, just thought up at the top of my head. Ryan Mountcastle has been the unluckiest hitter on pulled fly balls at home. His 177-point difference between his slugging and his X slugging on pulled fly balls at home since 2022 is the steepest among the 187 hitters with at least 25 pulled fly balls at home since 2022. Um, and in case you haven't picked up on it, of course, 2022 is when the Orioles moved back the left field wall, which was done against the best interest of a guy like Ryan Mountcastle, a left-handed or a right-handed power-based hitter in that lineup that they were hoping to have as like a middle of the order bat. Since 2021, in 2021, before this, Mountcastle put up a 27.9% pull rate on his fly balls, and in every year since, the number has been 22% or lower, which I do wonder, now that they are moving the fence back in a little bit, if there's more of a if there's more of an incentive for him to actually try to pull the ball. I would imagine he probably wasn't going for that as much when he was at home. And over the last 3 seasons, just as a reminder of the kind of power hitter that Mountcastle could be in a more favorable atmosphere for him. Over the last 3 seasons, Mountcastle barreled 31.8% of his fly balls, which is a higher rate than Corey Seager, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., and Matt Olson. Since 2022, he has a higher expected batting average than Jose Ramirez, Austin Riley, and Trey Turner. He also has a higher slugging percentage than Giancarlo Stanton, Gunnar Henderson, and Paul Goldschmidt, which 2022 MVP in there. It's pretty simple. I want to see his best offensive season since 2020. He's got it set up for him. I want him to take advantage of the newfound favoritism towards him in his home ballpark. I would just like to see that in 2025.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, I forgot with Kierstad, I would say 110 OPS plus in over 250 plate appearances.
Sure.
So now on to questions. Mine revolve around the two corner outfielders, or two projected corner outfielders on the Orioles. Who will hit more home runs, Tyler O'Neill or Colton Cowser?
Ooh. All right. Well, O'Neill is a guy that pulls the heck out of his fly balls, and Colton Cowser is not. But O'Neill does have the heart, although it's easier now, the harder pull side of the field to hit it out of. I will go with Tyler. Actually, no, I'm going to go with Colton Cowser just because O'Neill has unfortunately struggled to consistently stay on the field. Even if he did it much better last year, it's still been an issue since 2022. I feel more confident in Cowser's ability to stay on the field, and also, justify his being out there because of defensive base running and things like that. So I'm going to go with Colton Cowser on this one. My question for you, this team will be impacted more by what? An Adley Rutschman resurgence or a Grayson Rodriguez breakout?
Ooh, that is a good question. Um, I have to double check how many innings Gray Rod has pitched in his career.
I'd imagine it's
Yeah,
like probably 170-ish.
yeah, he pitched 116 last year. He actually pitched 122 the year
Oh wow,
before.
more than that, way more than that. I was way off.
Um, So yeah, I think a Gray Rod breakout would be dependent on him, making around 30 starts, obviously, which wasn't his fault that he didn't do it in 2023 because, that's kind of when he was called up. But yeah, 2024 he faced some injuries. Um, it is a bit. I just found Gray Rod is a very fun example of win-loss record not really mattering because
Yeah,
he went
he
13
went
and
13
4
and 4 last year. Oh my God.
with a 97 ERA plus. That's pretty insane. But but getting back on track. Yeah, there's some good signs with Gray Rod, like gets strikeouts at a good rate, good strikeout minus walk rate, good whiff rate. Um, and with Adley, I think he will improve. What's a very difficult question for me is I think Grayrod will improve more on an inning per inning basis, but unfortunately, with his fastball velocity being so high, I always have to be wary of injuries because that's just a theme that we've seen. Um, and but I won't let that limit me on this question. So I'll go with Gray Rod because I just see um more room for growth with him. Whereas Adley, he didn't have a great year last year, but it was still better than average, and I expect him to improve a little bit. But I think Gray Rod can really break out, and I see him just as much of a breakout candidate as I did heading into last year. So
Sure.
um if he, as long as he makes those 30 starts, I think that's a strong possibility for him. Um, so yeah, now on to the Yankees, who went 94 and 68 and won the American League East. Then they also defeated the Royals in the ALDS, the Guardians in the ALCS, and lost to the Dodgers in the World Series. They lost Juan Soto, Gleyber Torres, Clay Holmes, Alex Verdugo, Tommy Kahnle, Cody Poteet, Jose Trevino, and Anthony Rizzo. And they added Max Fried, Devin Williams, Cody Bellinger, Paul Goldschmidt, and Fernando Cruz. Who is your Yankees player to watch?
Yeah, the my player to watch is the last of those additions that you talked about. Fernando Cruz. I couldn't believe that this trade happened. It was him for Jose Trevino, I believe, straight up. Maybe there was a couple others, maybe some cash involved, but the bulk of the deal was Fernando Cruz for Jose Trevino. And I mean, there's obviously a lot of flaws, but certainly a lot of upside with Fernando Cruz. Out of 169 qualifying relievers in 2024, he ranked third in Ks per nine at 14.9 and sixth in K rate at 36.1%. Cruz's primary pitch last year was a splitter. He had more strikeouts on splitters than anyone else last year, despite being a reliever. He threw the splitter 41.9% of the time, which was a 6% increase over his 2023 splitter usage. But he actually doubled down on it when it mattered the most. He threw his splitter 74.7% of the time with two strikes, which is the highest rate of any pitch from the 275 pitchers that threw at least 300 total pitches with two strikes last year. Nobody depended on a single pitch with two strikes more than Fernando Cruz with his splitter last year, and for very good reason. Cruz's splitter produced 88 strikeouts and 34 batted balls. Just going to let that sit for a second. 88 strikeouts and 34 batted balls out of his primary pitch. It produced a 59.3% whiff rate, the highest of the 541 pitchers that were thrown at least 400 times. It produced an average exit velocity of 79 miles per hour, the eighth lowest among the 1,549 pitchers with at least 25 batted balls against them. Among the 579 pitchers last year to have at least 100 plate appearances and against any pitch last year, Cruz's splitter ranked sixth lowest in batting average against at 116, tied for the lowest in slugging against at 149, fourth lowest in WOBA against at 172, lowest in expected batting average at 097, lowest in expected slugging against at 119, and second lowest in xWOBA against at 159. I would like to see him maybe not be the closer this year because there's at least 1 to 2 better relievers in that bullpen, no doubt. But I would like to see similar below the surface numbers with a 125 ERA plus. He did have a 486 ERA last year. He did struggle to prevent runs. I think he's got the stuff to have a better ERA. I would like to see him go do it to the tune of a 125 ERA plus with all the same stuff that I just mentioned, filthy splitter, maybe some better. Really, my player to watch is Fernando Cruz's splitter. It's not even Fernando Cruz himself. Um, but I would maybe like to see some better development of secondaries. But I mean, feel free to keep using the splitter. Honestly, use it 100% of the time for all I care. It's that good. So yeah, Fernando Cruz is my Yankees player to watch.
Yeah, yeah, it's a pretty good find there. My player to watch got some time in the majors last year. I'm talking about Ben Rice, playing first base. And in his first year at the major league level, which was last year, he hit 171 with a 613 OPS and 72 OPS plus and 178 plate appearances. So you might be wondering, why am I highlighting a player with a 72 OPS plus last year? Well, while he hit 171, his expected batting average was 235. And while he slugged 349, his expected slugging was 459. Out of 426 hitters with 500 plus pitches seen last year, he had the unluckiest difference in batting average and expected batting average, slugging and expected slugging, and WOBA and expected WOBA. He was unluckiest by all those metrics. And, he was, by those metrics, he should have been an above average hitter last year. He put up a 33% fly ball rate and 15.6% barrel rate, which are part of the good signs that made his expected stats, very, very formidable. Out of 426 hitters, his barrel rate ranked 15th, which is top 4%. And then also he did a good job with plate discipline. He put up an 11% walk rate and 21% chase rate. Out of 410 hitters with 150 plus plate appearances last year, Rice ranked 51st in walk rate, which was top 13%. And out of 425 hitters to see 250 plus pitches out of the zone last year, Rice had the 37th lowest chase rate, which is top 9%. So this is someone like over a full season, or if he qualified for percentiles, it probably would have been around 85th percentile walk rate and 90th percentile chase rate. And yeah, I think he should have been an above average based on his underlying numbers, should have been an above average hitter at the major league level. And at the minor league level, he was very, very good. In 79 minor league games last year, he hit 273 with a 968 OPS. And I guess the last thing with him is, despite him greatly underperforming his expected metrics, his rate of fly balls being pulled was fairly average last year. It was 25%. So it wasn't that he wasn't pulling his fly balls, he was pulling them at, a fairly league average rate. So it wasn't that he was just hitting all of his batted balls to the deepest ends of the ballpark. I think he just had some unfortunate luck on his side. And yeah, that's why I think a goal for this year for him would just be like a 105 OPS plus and around 250 plate appearances, or 250 plate appearances or more. Because that's, he showed to have that ability. It's just the batted balls just seemed to find a lot of gloves last year.
The theme for you this episode is just like, let's see some above average offense.
Yeah, no, it's pretty. There's a lot of those in this episode, whether that be Kierstad, Wagner, Ben Rice,
Aranda.
Jonathan Aranda, like a lot of guys who got unlucky last year that I see some potential to not be bad hitters this year.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping at least one of them ends up being a hit. But yeah, on to questions.
Yeah, this question might be more appropriate for a different team in this division, given some of the events of the last week, but I'm asking for the Yankees anyway. Who will log the most games at third base for them this season?
Ooh, that is a very good question. Because like Jazz Chisholm got some time there last year.
Oswaldo Cabrera is right now the projected third baseman on Fangraphs.
Yeah, and I don't have that much faith in that. DJ LeMahieu's still there.
He is. I think, is this the last year of the deal? Right? It is.
No,
Yeah, it is. It
it's
was
a
a 5
6-year.
was it 6?
It was signed after 2020, so it was for
I
2021 to
thought it was
26.
5. I thought it was a 5-year deal.
No, yes.
Oh, they still have 2 more years of that.
Yeah, right.
That's tough.
pretty crazy. It was crazy when he was one of the most valuable players for 2 years. Well, 2.5, I guess, but
The
still.
Yankees' hands were so tied with that because like the fan base would have been very upset if they let him walk, but they also really should have.
Yeah, right, exactly. So he might get some third base time. Who knows?
Yeah.
Um, that is, man, that is a tough question. Uh, Oswald Peraza is also there. I mean, I'm trying to look. He played 4 Major League Baseball games last year. Pretty
That's
nice.
it?
That's what it says. Four
Wow.
4 games. I'll I'll throw out the wild card answer and go Oswald Peraza because
Okay.
why not? You know, he's heading into his age 25 season. Maybe they trust him a little bit more. Maybe he's made some improvements, but um, I really, yeah, it's hard to expect anyone to play like more than 50 games at the position this year.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I'll go with Oswald Peraza. Why not?
Hard
Um,
one.
my question will be is who'll have the lower ERA, Garrett Cole or Max Fried?
Yeah. Um, so I'm trying to think. Infield defense is questionable. I mean, the only place where you can really be certain is, to be honest, shortstop. I mean, we don't really know where Jazz is going to be. Is he going to be at second? Is he going to be at third? He'll be good, I think, wherever. But I mean,
Yeah.
first base and third base are definitely massive question marks. Um, Garrett Cole is, yeah. Um, I will go with Garrett Cole. He did have a very strong second half last year. Well, second half of the entire season was the second half. But after a few rough starts, he did kind of become the Garrett Cole that we know. Down the stretch there. I think he'll continue that for the large portion of 2025, and I do think he'll remain as the guy with the lower ERA.
Yeah, Cole had such an interesting year last year because like he was Cy Young level when he didn't pitch against the Mets last year, but
Yeah,
he
and
had
then the worst pitcher ever when he faced the Mets.
I mean the stats against the Mets last year were I mean should be studied
Luckily, it's
because
not a division rival, and
he
he could
probably
theoretically get out of facing them this year if the schedule is lined up correctly.
like he might have had the worst start of his career ever against the Mets, and then he faced
Yeah,
them again and had another horrible
had the
start.
second worst start of his career.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the 4 home run game was crazy.
I want to look at his splits just to get um yeah, go
Yeah,
to
the Fangraphs. You go to
opponents,
Fangraphs. Yeah,
opponent, um, opponent game level. Uh, he against the Mets, through 9 2/3 innings pitched, allowed 12 earned runs, 7 home runs, 6 walks, 4 strikeouts. Yeah, I should go to Fangraphs because that
I'll
would,
I'll get the Fangraphs while you get the I'll get the non-Met stats.
um, yeah,
I'll
because his
tag team
FIP
this one here.
specifically against the Mets was atrocious, which I did not
Yes.
appreciate as someone who had him in F4 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he had a 13.61 FIP against the Mets last year.
And
That
against not the Mets, it was uh a 2.57 FIP
yeah, that's elite.
in 85 innings pitched, 15 games started. Yeah, that's Garrett Cole.
That's yeah, right.
A
So
2.53 ERA. Yeah.
if the Yankees can like
Point 0.4 home runs
stage
per nine.
if the Yankees can just like um stage a fake injury,
No, you don't even
um
have to do that. You just pitch them the day before each Subway Series.
pretty
So
much, yeah.
it's 2 games at a time. It's not like the odds are actually in his favor to not line up against the Mets.
Yeah, I think that the team, team should be conscious of that, especially
Yeah,
with
put Fried and Rodon out there both games, and that's it.
yeah, with
Fried's faced the Mets plenty of times.
right. And yeah, with Juan Soto on the team, it might be worse for Cole because I feel like
Yeah.
did Soto homer off of Cole in the
Oh
World
yeah.
Series? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I believe that
Yeah.
was to the train tracks.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Took him opposite field.
Yeah.
He was 20. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
But everyone was concerned about Gleyber Torres' age at the time, so that was he's only 22.
I remember like it was controversial to reply to Yankee fans saying like Juan Soto is better and younger when they would talk about Gleyber Torres' age.
Yeah, yeah. Torres did hit 38 homers that year, but still, well,
Yeah.
Soto was better at the time, and he
And also younger. He was younger at the time and he's also younger now. Isn't that crazy?
wow,
Yeah.
insane. Um, but yeah, that does it for the AL East preview, and I think that should be it for the episode.
Yeah. While we're on the topic, Juan Soto homered in his first Mets spring training plate appearance.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
here it comes. Uh, Well, if anything, that makes me feel worse. I feel like if a guy puts up like a 500 OPS in spring training, I'm like, he's about to go off.
He's about to go off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but uh, but yeah, that should
I'll
do it
never
for this.
forget, real quick, I'll never forget Chris Bryant 2015 spring training. Now that we're at the 10-year anniversary of it, that was like maybe the greatest spring training anyone's ever had. I think he had led the league in home runs that spring. Like before people even knew about service time manipulation on like a national scale, they were like, how are they not calling him up? And it's like, well, I mean, we
Yeah.
know why. Because I mean, famously, Chris Bryant, if you look at his service time, it's like whatever number dot 181
Yeah, 171, I think.
or 171. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's
Exactly a
it's
day
really
off
funny.
from the service time mark. He would have hit free agency a year earlier because he won Rookie of the Year that year.
True, true. And then would it be double if he started the year with the team?
He would have they would have gotten a pick,
Oh, okay. So if a
a draft
guy
pick.
starts the day on the opening day roster,
If you
they
don't do the service time manipulation and the guy like finishes top two in Rookie of the Year, I think it is, you get a pick. And then if
oh
you
fun.
don't and they win Rookie of the Year, they just get the full year of service time. So you lose them. Like the Pirates are losing Paul Skeens a year earlier than they were supposed to.
Yeah, yeah. How about that,
Yeah.
Mr. Nutting? How about
Yeah.
that?
Excellent. Masterful gambit, guys. Nice job.
Yeah, obviously
I
now
don't
guys
blame
are
them. He would pitch 6.2 professional innings before last year. They probably weren't imagining they would call him up in May and he'd win Rookie of the Year,
right,
especially
exactly.
with how many, guys there were last year: Chorio, Merrill,
Yeah, now guys
Imanaga,
are
Yoshinobu Yamamoto.
yeah, for sure. Now like guys are gonna get called up in like August and like just barely meet the rookie thing.
Yeah.
So
No, that's how to do it now, is just call your guys up a year early in August, have them get to 120. Then I
right.
mean, you're still really losing you're still losing the service time though, right? If you plan on calling them up the
Yeah,
next year.
you gotta find that balance. Like probably like late June is a good
Or
time.
you just gotta, I don't know, call them up when they're ready and
Yeah,
figure it out. How about that?
true. That's a good point. That's a good point there. Um,
Yeah.
but uh, but yeah, anything more before we wrap this up?
I have one more thing to add before you're done.
Okay, yeah.
2015 Chris Bryant in spring training. He had 40 at bats. Not sure how many plate appearances. He slashed 425, 477, 1175 for a 1652 OPS. He hit 9 home runs. Nobody else that led the league, right? Yeah, nobody else hit more than 7. He hit 9. He had the how many? Oh, he qualified for OPS. That's unfortunate. Yeah, just there it is right there.
Yeah, that's 1652 OPS is insane. It's
How
an
old was he at
absurd
the
thing.
time? Like 24?
I don't think he was that
He
young
wasn't. Yeah.
because he was out of college.
23. He was 23. Okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah. So yeah, uh, shout out to Chris Bryant. Um, but yeah, so that shall do it for this installment of Above Replacement Radio. We hope you enjoyed this one. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and want to watch the conversation as it happens, go to the YouTube channel. It is called Above Replacement Radio. We just did an interview with Anthony Castrovince of MLB.com, so make sure to check that out. This at the top of all of our pages. And if you want more guest interviews, go to the YouTube channel. Check out the playlist. We've interviewed Mark Simon 4 times. We've interviewed Jeff Passan, Chris Rose, Foolish Bailey, Mike Petriello, Sarah Langs, Matt Brash, reliever for the Mariners, among others. So go make sure to check that out. We have some pretty evergreen stuff over there. Also follow us on social media. Follow me on Twitter, @Chris_Gianta. Follow Daniel on both Twitter and Instagram, @Daniel_Curran, and follow the show Instagram, @Above Replacement Radio, for all the show needs. We hope you enjoyed this one, and we hope to see you next time, where we will be talking all the happenings in Major League Baseball once again, and we'll be previewing the NL East and
No, I believe it's the NL East next week.
yeah, the NL East.
I think you said AL East.
Oh, we will be previewing the National League East and also revealing players 50 through 26 on our top 50 lists. We will see you then.
This conversation is over.